Hello everyone, welcome to this week's webinar here at Brenndan Cooper at Tiffany Green's Golf Club in Kansas City, Missouri. As always, we're brought to you by Medicus Golf and KickX Golf, and the topic this week was called How Low Can You Go? So we tricked you a little bit. It's not about how low you can go in your score, it's about what the true and actual how low point works in a golf swing.
Right.
There's been a lot of video here lately. Or a lot of drawings, and people seem to think that that's it, and there are some mistakes. We want to cover those. If you have any questions, just put them there in the sidebar, and we will get to those when we get done.
Yep.
So let's talk about a pendulum for a second. The golf swing isn't a pendulum motion, but it kind of gives you the idea. So if I held this club out like this would be the lowest point. It's hanging in a straight line. That would be prior to low point and post low point. So in golf, basically where your left arm hangs in a straight line is the low point. But it's moving during the swing. It's moving back, it's moving forward, it's moving up, it's moving in. So it's moving around quite a bit.
Yeah.
So if you have an inline club shaft, that means in line with your left arm, then the club should strike the ball, go into the ground, and travel to that low point. So that means your divot could be 2 inches or it could be 6 inches,
right,
or 8 inches.
Right.
Who knows what it is? So it just depends on that movement. Now, if you're someone that throws a club in front of your hands like this, then your low point's going to be back here. If you're someone that, what we call arching the wrist, well, this is now the low point up here. So it's a two-piece combination. It's where your shoulder, where your wrists are relative to the club head.
Yeah.
So you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, we spend a lot of our time working with students on, one, understanding the concept, right? Making sure, because if a player doesn't understand what they're trying to do, then they're not going to be able to achieve it. So
right.
We spend a ton of time working with our students on this very topic here, saying, okay, ball's on the ground, we need to understand where are we trying to do with the club to get it to low point, and then go from there.
Right. So if we had a let me just bring this up here real quick. If we had for an example, let's say that this thing was the ground. It isn't, but let's say that it is. And Brenndan was standing up on a level surface to this, which would also be the ground. All right, if they were both level, as he strikes the ball, his club would go into the ground until it got just past his low point, then it would rise up by itself. You don't have to make it rise up by shortening your arms or anything else. So that club is striking the ball and traveling downward, again, all the way to low point. Post low point, it's going to be working upward, again, with no help from you.
Right.
So that's kind of how that whole scenario works, right? So we have to make sure that when we're striking this ball, especially with an iron, and depending on the ball position, as we get our pressure forward, right? So that's key number 2, weight forward, and then the hands in line. Okay, so that's key number 3.
Yeah. As
we get those together, you're going to strike the ball. My club's going to enter the ground. And again, I'm trying to push down as hard as I can, but I think you guys can see that it's not on the ground. Let me do it this way and see if you can see it better. In the ground, and I'm still pushing, but the club is off the ground. That's on the ground, off the ground. So again, I'm not trying to pull it in whatsoever to help this ball up.
Right.
So we're going to do a little diagram here for you. And
school is in session.
Yeah, you have to take into effect that I'm not an artist here. And I'm probably going to have to move that camera upward. Well, that's good. I don't know how far away it is. May have to move it closer. So let's start with a circle. Okay. Now, golf swing's not truly a circle, but for illustration points, we're going to say that it is. We're going to say that this is the ground. All right. So the center of this arc or circle would be low point, all things being considered. So if I put the golfer's head right here, all right, and I put a shoulder here, I'm going to take this down to here, here, and now here's his golf club. All right, so here's the golf ball. So when his club strikes the ball, right, the club face for a right-handed golfer will be pointed slightly right. And we're going to have to move this, we're going to have to bring this in a little bit. Let me see if I can zoom it back here and then move it in. Hang on 1 second here. Tighten her up. And right about there. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that now. All right, so as the golfer strikes it, the club is continuing down this direction until it reaches that lowest point. Okay, so when it reaches that lowest point, the club is now going to start working back up and in. So we can show that, and Brenndan's going to show this kind of with a hula hoop. If we looked at the golfer's point of view of this, so if we take this off and turn it upside down, this is what the golfer is seeing. They're seeing their club come down and strike the ball with a continuing move outward for a right-handed golfer. And once it reaches that low point, it's going to come straight back up again. So it actually is going down into the ground. And there's actually another piece on here, and let me put this back up and then we'll show you that. So, and that is the piece that goes right about here, which is called low point plane line. So your club is striking the ball back on this low point plane line, and it goes under the ground, you know, into the turf and into the ground.
Yeah.
And so depending on your angle of attack, it could be a really deep divot, like if you had a wedge versus a smaller divot with a 3-4 iron.
Right. But still, even with the longer clubs, that club is not necessarily, like Chuck said, even like a 3 wood, it's still bottoming out in front of the golf ball.
All right, so you want to show them something with this hula hoop?
And what we're going to do is we're going to let Chuck autograph this, and we'll put that up for auction.
Yeah.
Yeah, autograph it. So anybody want to bid on this, please do so.
All right, so now we have the hula hoop. And let me just back this out a little bit so that we can all see Brenndan. And there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
So if we take, if you take a hula hoop, and again, you can have it on an angle. I know we've done stuff where we've had it, you know, represented actual path of the club and whatnot, but you know, if we have from this perspective, again, think of it, if I held this rod, if this rod was ground line here, well, the direction that, remember, that club's going to be swinging close to a circle, but now the ground is level, so that thing's got to go into the ground somewhere. And so if we had it here, it's going to go down, strike ball about right here, but continue to go underneath the ground and then back up and in again, post impact.
Right, so if you had this slanted and you had this on here like this, all right? So if you guys can see this, let's turn it this way.
Okay.
All right, so as you can hopefully see this, why don't you hold that a straight line to the bottom down there? All right, so now we have a straight line. And so as this club is swinging down, if I connect the ball way back here, you see where that little rod's pointed? It's pointed way to the right. So the closer I get to the low point, the less to the right it is pointing until it finally is just pointing dead square. Post impact, you can see how it's starting to point left. All right, so that's exactly how this works. And that's what that drawing is trying to show you. I used to do that a lot. It was a lot better, but it's kind of like third grade now. But, you know, it is what it is. Okay, so anyway, the main thrust of this conversation is that when you strike the ball prior to low point, the club is moving, or should be moving, slightly to the right, and it will continue that direction, and it will continue in the ground, basically, until it gets to your lowest point.
Right.
That does not mean your divot points to the right.
Correct.
Okay, doesn't mean that at all. So Anything you want to add to this?
No, I mean, you know, for people watching, and I know that, you know, when we start doing drawings and the hoops, and sometimes it can get a little bit confusing, but just realize again, if I lay this rod down on the ground, and this is where the ball would be, all right? So what we've done tons and tons of times, you've seen Chuck do it, where if we make a swing and we hit on this backside back here, well, that's where the low point is. We know that if this line is where the ball is, the low point's got to be up here, because now you can see the club head is right underneath my left shoulder here. And I've maintained this inline condition. So from here, as I start to keep moving forward, that club goes up. And I've maintained this inline condition here. Okay, if I lose that, well, you can see now, like Chuck said earlier, this is the low point, which is on the back side of the rod. So again, this is a wonderful drill that we do with a lot of students, where we'll have them just swing up, hit on the front side of the rod, because that is ensuring a lot of things. It's ensuring we have our weight forward. It's ensuring that we have this flat left wrist, which would make the shaft and lead arm in line. But, you know, again, you've got to understand that concept that ball's on the ground, we're trying to get to the low point, which is in front of that ball.
All right, so we've got a couple of questions. So the first one is from Air, Bobby Clampett. It says Booby Clampett here, but Bobby Clampett talks about the 4 inches after impact low point, about the middle of the divot. Agree or disagree?
Well, okay, so here's the deal. If you strike the ball 6 inches from your low point, and you maintain your inline condition, then your divot would be 6 inches long. If it's 2 inches from your low point, it would be 2 inches long. All right, so the divot should be always in front of the golf ball, but I know that you spent some time down there with Bobby, so why don't you talk about it a little more?
Yeah, I mean, you know, and had the pleasure of spending some time with Bobby, and you know, don't worry about as far as exactly, is it 4, is it 2, is it 6, or whatever. Just like Chuck said, the main point is, where is it in relation to the ball? You know, when we're working with students, it's not that we're saying, oh, it's got to be exactly 4 or it's got to be 2. We're looking at it as a whole. So, you know, I've got students that take some long divots. I'm not really going to change that, because they can get it consistent every time. I've got some that don't take very big divots at all, but they're always getting that low point in front of the ball.
Right.
So I don't think it's necessarily, does it need to be 4, 2, or what? It's just, where is it?
Right.
You know, that's the big thing.
As long as you have the inline club and left arm,
Right.
It doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah. And it's not that we're, you know, contradicting anything that Bobby's done or anything. You know, it's just, you know, I think Bobby would agree with us on that. You know,
Right.
I'm not trying to speak for him, but, you know, to do these certain things, you have to have certain alignments.
Right. And, you know, one of the drills he uses is the, you know, the line in the sand, which was, you know, that was taught to me 40 years ago. Mike and Andy draw a line on the ground, and they had you swing up and try to strike the ground in the same place on the forward side of that.
Yeah.
So those aren't new drills. They've been around forever, and those are ways to work on it.
Yeah. Just like the one where we, you know, dodge the rod here. Same thing.
Right.
All right, let's see. Our next question is from Lisa. Please show us strategy on approach shots, how to land the ball on the right spot, how to judge the green. For some cases, when I see the green from fairway 90 yards and in, the left side is higher than the right. When I'm on the green, it's the other way around. Thanks. So I think what you're saying, Lisa, is where do you want to hit the ball on the green?
Mm-hmm.
And it may look like it's sloped left to right, or right to left, or front to back, or back to front. If you've played the golf course before, it's always good to make notes in a little notepad or something. So if you go back and play it again, it doesn't give you that mirage of what it looks like.
Yeah.
But typically, most players should be just trying to hit it to the middle of the green.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have back left pin and you're a fader of the golf ball, you do not want to go flag hunting. The ball, you want to start at the flag or slightly right of it, so finish somewhere on the green. Yeah. If you have a right hand pin, just the opposite. Start it at that pin or a little bit left of it, and let it come back to the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Some greens, there can be as much as 3 clubs difference between a front pin and a back pin.
Yeah.
So again, if you don't know the golf course, the best thing is to always hit it towards the middle.
Yeah, always get your middle yardage and then see where the flag is in relation to there and err one side or the other. So, you know, if let's say for instance that you've got your middle yardage and the pin's in the back, let's say. Well, try to figure out what's the yardage to the middle, what's my yardage to the back, and maybe split the difference there. A lot of times, you know, like Chuck's saying, you go flag hunting and you get that exact yardage to the back. Well, if you catch it too good, now you're over the green and you've short-sighted yourself, right? So, and it's the exact opposite if it's on the front. You've got your middle yardage, you figure what your yardage is to the front, split the difference there. You know, I mean, one thing that we do a lot with our players in our program, and especially with our high school girls, because they're in season right now, is we're always working with them on how to think around the golf course. And it's kind of funny because Miranda, we worked with a little bit ago, we were talking about this very thing, is don't go out and try to feel like you're trying to be dead precise on every shot, where, yeah, we're trying to hit the ball to a specific target, but you don't want to feel like you're overloading yourself trying to force it on a dead straight line. Think of it more as like a shotgun pattern, where if anybody's ever shot a shotgun, well, it comes out in a pattern like this. That's kind of how your thought process should be hitting into the greens. Not that you're trying to land a missile in a dead specific spot. Have some leeway there.
Right, and going back to a back pin, you have to choose the club that you cannot hit over the green.
Yeah.
So that's the big club choice. It's either this club or this club. This club I can fly the green with, well then you go with the one that's underneath.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, you just have to think a little bit when you're out there. It's like front pins. You don't take the club that's going to carry that exact distance.
Exactly.
Because if it has a false front, it's right back down to the bottom of your feet.
Or you catch it just a groove thin, now you're in trouble. So, you know, it's not necessarily how close we hit it, it's how many greens can you hit.
Right.
That's probably one of the most important stats, you know, in golf right there is greens and regulation.
Right, and work on hitting greens, and once you can consistently start hitting a lot of greens, then work on what we call proximity to hole, hitting it closer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, let's see what else we got here. We got a bunch of them.
Great question so far. Rich, what about left arm not extended as much past impact? All right, so, and we talked about this on numerous occasions. The reason that for a lot of people that the left arm does not extend post-impact is twofold. One, they're moving the club head past their hands coming into impact. And two, and I'll show you from this angle. And two, their upper torso is not rotating. So even if I got here like this, my next thing is going to look like this. And we see a lot of golfers doing this because they don't get their torso, their upper body rotated. So your torso is rotating and your upper body. So if I turn my chest, see my head's not moving forward, but you see how much farther my hands are going forward? Now I'm in impact and I just keep turning the chest. And that's what gives me the extension. Because if I don't turn, I can get over here, my left arm extended, but I can't reach it with my right arm, so it will look like this.
Yeah.
So how do I do that? I turn that way. So that's all you have to do is make sure you continue turning the upper body.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so
The next question, we got some good questions today too. Megan, swing speed. What is the average swing speed for a weekend female golfer, age range 50 to 55? What are all factors to increase it in order, please? For example, the right leg post up, then the right hand throw motion, whatever. Thanks. What is the right way for a hip turn? Is it a no spinning one or post up on the left leg? So Megan, you got a bunch of questions in there. So we're going to start with the average swing speed. For the average female golfer, it's in pretty good shape. It's around 70, 75 miles an hour with a driver.
Yep.
That's going to equate to about 150, 55 yards carry, and the rest of it's going to be rolled depending on how it comes down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, when you're talking about that's the speed part. So how would you increase that speed? And we've talked about that numerous times. Why don't you go ahead and take it away?
You know, the one drill that you know, try to sum up everything that you've got in there, because you've got a lot of, you know, right leg hip motion, everything, and we've done it tons of times. And I don't have one here, but it's the rope drill. Right? We have our students grab a rope and swing a rope back and forth. But let's say I'm going to use this rod, and let's try to picture it as a rope for a second. So I would take a rope, kind of fold it up to where it's roughly about a 5-iron length and just kind of resting on the ground. Now from here, I'm going to swing my hands and arms back, turn my shoulders, and let that rope just kind of rest on my shoulders here. Now from here, since the rope doesn't have any weight, you're going to feel when you start down, you're going to kind of initiate from the ground up. So you're going to see how I'm kind of getting my feet and my hips, knees, and everything kind of triggering it right here. Now from here, I'm just turning on the speed, trying to get that rope to make a sound. So I would go, you see how I get that started? And just turn on the speed. And that's going to get everything in sequence. Another thing you can do is just what I literally did right here with this rod. And if you can hear that thing swoosh, you're generating some speed and you're swinging your arms as a little bit faster. If I just go here and turn my body, well, I didn't get near the swoosh. Right. But now if I take it up and I think, okay, I'm going to try to speed up my arms some, then there's a big difference there.
Right, and we see that with male and female golfers alike.
Yes, yes.
You know, they're all trying to move their body faster. Your body's only going to move a certain amount of speed, and your arms can swing up to 4 times faster than your body can turn. So I'm going to try to move the thing that swings the club the fastest, in balance, but I'm going to let my body support it.
Support it, and it's going to start to carry it right at the start.
Right, yeah, right. So I hope that answers all your questions, Megan. Thank you.
All right, so next we have Bill. What is the best thing to do for flexibility at 86 years old?
Why don't you take this?
Okay. Yeah, I'll take this one since I'm closer. Okay. I need to get a prop here, so hang on. You can do this at home while you're watching this, Bill. Just get a chair, sit in a chair, put a club across your shoulders, and just turn as far as you can without raising your butt. Now turn as far as you can without raising your butt the other way. And when you first start doing this, you might not be able to turn very much. So what you do is, just like when you're working out, you take your body to a point where it can't go any farther, and then try to go a little bit farther, and hold it for a count of 5. You do it the other way, okay? So that's going to give you more upper body flexibility. As far as hip flexibility, this one I can't do, so I'm going to have Brenndan do this one. Basically what you're going to do is you're just going to sit here and you're just going to turn your hips.
Elvis dance.
Yeah, a little Elvis dance. You're going to turn your hips back, and then you're going to turn your hips forward. Boom. And then you do that about as fast as you can do it, right? And you get that.
Now notice also what I'm doing. It's not this motion.
Right.
Turn, turn.
Now, I can tell you this, Bill. Everybody that comes to us and says they're not flexible, we prove to them within 10 seconds that they are.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can't tell you how many people have said, well, I just can't turn. So we get them to stand up like this. We get them to turn to their right. You notice that your right hip, if you're right-handed player, your right hip is turning as far as it can, and I'm going to let my left foot off the ground. Okay? And my shoulders are turned as far as I can. Now what I'm going to do is just lean forward.
And there's your posture. Yeah.
Okay? So I'm clear over here. So you got to make sure that this hip, if you're a right-handed player, is getting as far behind you as you can. So let your target side foot come off the ground. I mean, not all up on the toe.
But you should feel like if in order to keep the right hip turning, if you get to a point where you have to stop and you haven't turned very far, well, just keep going and you'll feel that lead foot get pulled. So
right.
That's the feel. Is if it needs to be pulled up, it can. You're not just going to do this. Another Elvis dance.
Right. But again, when you get to that point, right? I mean, I can turn right about here, but with my upper body, if I want a more hip turn, I'm going to just let my foot release.
Yep.
That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to do. We see people doing this all the time, where they didn't turn at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, like Chuck said, if you just stand straight up and down, now if I turn and face the camera, literally that's what our body's doing in the golf swing.
Right.
The only difference is that I'm in a posture, in my golf posture, I just did the same move.
Right.
That's literally it.
So, hope that helps, Bill. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Rich, how do you hit that low driving wedge from 80 yards? Okay, well, we like low driving wedges.
Trevino burning wedge.
That's right. So let's go through a series of questions here, all right? So if Brenndan's gonna set up to this ball, he doesn't have a wedge, but let's say this. Okay. And I said, all right, now Brenndan, if I want you to hit the lowest wedge you can hit, does the ball have to be farther back or more forward?
I'm gonna say here.
Okay, so farther back. At impact, does a shaft have to be farther forward or less forward?
I'm gonna say here, Chuck.
Farther. Okay, now, would the weight be, and the pressure be farther forward or less forward?
I'm gonna say forward.
More forward. And if I wanted to hit it the lowest, would my arms finish out like this, or did they finish out like that?
I'm gonna go with this.
There you go. So anytime you're trying to hit a shot of a certain type, ask yourself questions. You know that the more the handle's leaning forward, the more you're de-lofting the club. You know that the farther back the ball is, the better chance you have of doing that. You also know, you can also see this for yourself. If you try to lean the handle forward and then hang back on your right side, you just lost that forward lean.
Counterproductive.
Yeah. So all those things add up to hitting those shots. So if I wanted to hit the highest shot, I'd have the ball more forward. I'd have less forward lean, or maybe even a vertical shaft, depending on the shot. I'd still have my pressure forward, but my higher shot, I'd let my arms and club go higher. So think of it like pitching pennies. I'm going to throw a low penny, I'm going to throw a high penny.
Yeah, just like Jack Nicklaus. You know, Nicklaus back in the day was known for hitting it very high. Well, look at how his finish was. His finish was way up like this.
Right.
You know, if you look at somebody like Justin Leonard back in the day, he didn't hit it very long, but boy, he hit it low, you know, growing up and playing in Texas.
Right.
And his finish was way around like that.
Yeah. Paul Azinger.
Zinger, yeah.
Lee Trevino.
Trevino, yeah. That's how Trevino hit those, you know, the burning wedge that
Yeah.
we talked about.
The hunk of burning wedge.
That ought to be a song.
There you go.
All righty. Jay, what is a good drill to actively move from the downswing to the front foot prior to the downswing? Okay. This one takes a little more work. All right, so I'm going to have Brenndan set up. And the drill you can do, and you can do this at home in front of your mirror, as he's taking the club back, I'm going to say now. And when I say now, I want him to start moving this way while he's continuing his backswing.
Yep.
All right, go ahead. Now, there it was. See, he started forward before the club reached the top. So a lot of good players, most of them, start forward before they complete. You don't, and just do short shots to begin with. Go like this. So try to keep the club going here while you're going that way. So the club's going here, you're going there.
Yeah.
Don't think that that's what you do in the total backswing now.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct. Yes.
Don't want you doing that. But that's to isolate the difference between one going one way and one going the other.
Yeah. The sensation and feel is that when you do that, it feels like, you know, the club is just being left back here while everything else is starting to go.
Right.
Which is not a bad feel.
Okay, Ken, 60 yards, front pin off a tight lie or hard pan. What club and how to play it? What's a good lie? I'm pretty accurate with 60 degree, but struggle with the tight lie.
Use your putter.
So depending on your wedge and the amount of bounce, you're much better off to use a club with more bounce or less bounce, right, and less loft when you have those 60-degree tight wedges.
Yeah.
Right, anything you want to add on to that?
No, you know, again, it's with those types of shots, you know, people get a little bit nervous when they get on those tight lies, especially with that more finesse type shot.
Right.
And it will lead to people wanting, well, I mean, even if we're off this concrete here, you know, that's a pretty tight lie. But now if I just make a motion back, see, I tried to actually hit down on it. Ball still got up in the air.
Right.
Where psychologically it plays where people think they got to try to do that, and all bets are off.
You're trying to use the bounce of the club, use it the leading edge.
Yes, and that's where, you know, we've talked before with wedges, you know, You can have a leading edge shot or a trailing edge shot. Well, if it's hard pan, we want to try to get more of a leading edge type of shot, you know, and so that's going to be more where we're making sure pressure's here, hands are forward a little bit, we've got some shaft lean, so that way that leading edge is striking it first. We want it to kind of hit and dig just a bit.
Right.
Okay, let's see what else we got here. Thank you for the question. Jim, on the range, I typically hit my 7-iron 155 yards. Whoops, sorry. Jay, I'm going to go back, and I'll get with you in a minute, Jim. Jay, at impact, is the right shoulder rotating past the setup position? Well, you can think of it as the right shoulder. You can think of it as the left shoulder. I mean, my setup position, my shoulders are pretty square, okay, or close. But at impact, they're open. So my right shoulder is actually lower than where I started, and it has opened.
Mm-hmm.
So if I get my right shoulder to replace my left shoulder, so that means it's going to be down. The shoulders are going to be open at impact, and I'm going to continue to move the upper torso around. And when I get over here, the lowest, that's where the lowest point of my right shoulder is going to be. Now I may decide to release it upward, or I can just stay down there.
Yeah. And notice the key word was there. It continues to turn.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people get fixated on, well, should my shoulders be open 10 degrees, 20 degrees? It depends on the individual, as long as they are opening.
Right.
That's what we would say. You
Right.
know, it's you know, what direction is the right shoulder going, and are they opening through impact?
Well, I can only tell you, years ago in Atlanta, we had David Duvall on overhead camera. This is when he was the #1 player in the world. At impact, his shoulders were 35 degrees open.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, you know, David had what we would refer to, or most people would call a super strong grip, but he had to rotate that much with that grip.
Yeah.
Remember, the stronger your grip is, the more you have to rotate, right? The weaker it is, the less you have to rotate.
Yep.
So your shoulders might only be open, who knows, 20 degrees maybe. But if you got that super strong grip, and again, you look at Paul Azinger, and everybody has that strong grip, they are way past the open part.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, now, Jim.
Thanks, Jay. Okay, Jim, on the range, I typically hit my 7-iron 155 with a high with a slight draw. On the course, I repeat the above on occasion, but too often error with more of a hook or an enhanced draw. I feel that I may be swinging a bit faster on the actual shot. So if you are hitting a high draw on the practice range, but out on the golf course, you're still hitting a draw, but sometimes it's an overdraw. You're still making the same motion,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a big difference between what the club face is doing and what your swing path is doing. So, and we've talked about this numerous times as well. So when you have the club face and the club path, okay, in the same direction, doesn't matter where it starts, it's going to go straight. If you're a right-handed golfer and you want to draw the ball, then your path, that'll be the bottom one, needs to be farther to the right than the club face is. So the wider this dispersion, let's see if I can get a better angle on it.
There you go.
Here. So the wider this dispersion, the more the ball is going to curve.
Yep.
So the only thing that's happening, Jim, is you're making pretty much the same motion. That dispersion between the two has gotten wider.
Yeah.
So that could be, you may have just aimed your path more to the right than you do on the range.
Yeah, the first thing that you may want to check is have a buddy stand behind you and see exactly where you're aiming. Because you know, if you keep aiming a little bit too far to the right, well, now you're just shifting your plane line, and that's going to make what Chuck was talking about, that dispersion, that much wider.
Right.
So that'd be the first thing to look at, is have somebody check your aim.
Right. So, and usually the setup is going to be the crux of that dispersion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the question. All right, we have the last question here from Peter. How do you stay in posture through the shot? Body moves upright too quickly.
Well, so your body is going to be moving up, but if you're moving upright too quickly, we're going to equate that to what we would call early extension. And that would be where you get set up to the ball in the downswing, you stand straight up like this. Well, that's because your pelvis isn't turning, moving forward.
Yeah.
So when I get to the top, what you want to feel, and you can do this, just put a chair behind you. When you get to the top, feel like you're pushing the chair back with your butt and staying down through this impact. Again, when you stand up, essentially you should miss the ball.
Yeah.
Because there's a club swinging over here instead of at the ball.
Yeah, it's going to cause you to do all sorts of squirrely things with your arms and wrists just to make contact with it. So that's single-handedly, that's probably one of the most effective drills that we use a lot.
Right. And if you feel like you're moving a little bit out of your posture in the backswing, well, just set it up here, and then on the backswing, push it back farther, release it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but should you come up during the swing where you're going to be rising up from impact forward, all right, because you're coming into impact, you're coming in, and because all this is rotating, that is, you're losing all the flex in your target side knee. This left shoulder is going up, 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 in, so you are getting taller.
Yeah.
But that's post-impact.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's post-low point.
Yeah. Yeah, I am post-low point.
Oh, looks like we have another question here. Rich, hitting a drive into a 20-mile-an-hour wind, do I swing flatter?
Oh, you could, but let's say, if you've got the wind in your face, the thing that I always try to focus on is, one, hitting the ball in the sweet spot. Don't worry necessarily about trying to change too much swing-wise. First, focus on hitting the ball in the middle of the face, because if you do that, it's going to pop off with the maximum ball speed, and a lot of times it'll just eat through the wind. And same thing can be applied to crosswinds. I mean, I'm sure we've all hit those shots where we play the wind, we take an iron out and hit it and just dead flush it, and it doesn't move an inch.
Right.
And the same's true if the wind's in our face. Sometimes you can hit it, and we can catch it right on the sweet spot, and it goes pretty good. The other thing that you could play around with a little bit is maybe just hit just a little bit lower. Don't necessarily try to, I'm not real big on doing a lot of plane adjustments for players. You catch it just a little bit lower on the face, it's going to launch out just a little bit lower without having to do anything crazy.
And the other side of the coin is, don't try to swing any harder, because if you try to swing harder, all you're going to do is make the ball spin more.
Yeah.
If the ball spins more into the wind, it's going to be shorter anyway.
Yeah, it's not going to do much good.
All right, well, that's all the questions. We want to thank you all for coming in. The Chiefs have had a rough couple of weeks, so we're hoping this Sunday, oh, come on, baby. And how about them boys?
Yeah, nobody got hurt last week. It was a good week.
All right, well, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for all the great questions.